Hello, welcome back to the Care and Conversation studio, live from the Care Show London. We have our next guest with us, Amy. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Would you like to tell us who you are and what you do?
I shall. My name's Amy Lewis. I'm Managing Director at Just Checking. We provide activity monitoring services using sensor technology to help people live a bit more independently, reduce their restrictions down, understand care and support needs. So we help a lot of local authorities to deliver better care by understanding through data evidence where care should be placed.
So if we break that down, what's that look like for kind of an actual local authority? Like, what's the process? How does it work?
There's kind of two options or two sides of the work that we do. The first is taking kind of a pre-packaged box, a plug-and-play system as we call it, and that could be purchased or you could hire us in to support your assessment process. And we work with social workers, we get the processes in place, we have a team that are there to take calls or inquiries, and the idea is that a kit is installed around a person's property, so we take a series of different sensors, so it could be motion sensors or activity sensors or a weight sensor for under a chair or a bed, that kind of thing.
Temperature as well?
Temperature, heat, light, yeah. And we can use all of those different data points to understand someone's movement around their home and really get a picture and a feel for what's going on for them at home. So if somebody's new to adult social care and you're not sure where or how they should be supported, it can be really useful to put the system in for a couple of weeks, use that information. There's no cameras and there's no audio. I think people are sometimes worried about being filmed at home, which is a complete understandable concern. But when they see how it just is marked on a chart effectively, and it's just about what that information can tell us. So it could tell us that somebody's getting up at 10 o'clock every day, missing breakfast and staying up later at night, and actually they're reverse cycling their sleep, or it could tell us that they're wandering and leaving the property. They might have early onset dementia, or they might be struggling with certain tasks at home. So we can have a look at all of that information. We provide...
A really solid way, isn't it? So it's real, and again, right into details like drinking and opening the fridge and things like that, to really get quite a full picture of what someone's sort of health, general well-being habits are, right?
That's it. And we can sequence those sensors together. So exactly as you've said, we can kind of get a better picture with more granular detail if we've put a sensor on, the fridge and the tea cupboard and the cutlery drawer. Actually, that's a really good indication that a drink is being made, not just somebody's been in the kitchen. We can't tell so much from that. So we'll use all of that and we will analyse that information. So we have internal analysts, data analysts that look at that information. We automate a certain element of it, but we think it's quite important to have that human verification. So people, we have quite a lot of care experienced staff within our team as well, and they will understand what's going on for people, convert that into a very readable support for social workers who haven't got time to go in early doors. We would probably train teams up and expect them to be able to understand that information, or have experts in-house in the local authority that would do it. But we've grown over the years and learnt that actually we need to take that pain away. So we'll provide that reporting, and they can just pick that report up at the end of the couple of weeks and use that as part of their care needs decision. And we have it used for panel decisions. It's used across the board. We've had it used in investigations. It's quite reliable information.
Yeah. And so you work with quite a lot of local authorities, don't you? So what is it that they love about the product? Why do they choose to use it? I guess you laid that out a little bit, but that system goes in for a couple of weeks. What's the enablement for them afterwards? What do they get out of it from that perspective?
I think everybody knows social workers are rare, getting rarer. They're time poor. They've got a lot more cases to handle nowadays than ever before. And actually, the feedback that we get from social workers is just a really valuable tool as part of the work that they do. We know that there's long wait lists for assessments now, and the teams that we work with most solidly are seeing that reduction, so they can see that they can put referrals into us, we'll deal with that. Perhaps there's clever ways of doing it, like when somebody puts a referral into adult social care, we can go and get the system in early in that first couple of weeks. So whilst they're sat on the wait list, it feels like they're being responded to much quicker. So there is something going on, they're not just sat there waiting. So it's dealing with those kind of problems, but also when the social worker is ready to pick that up, when it becomes part of their casework, then they've got a wealth of information to start that assessment from. It's not just going from zero.
Yeah.
And it's used across the board, and we discover things that they probably wouldn't have known, well, they wouldn't have been able to look for, because we're basing it on 24/7 cycle of someone's life. We're looking at 2 weeks, but we're not looking at a glimpse of time in that, we're looking at the whole picture. So it'll be things, quite often people find that overnight observations are really, really useful, because it's not something they would normally see. So I think it's just a really good part of their toolkit, really, to get them moving quicker, having lots of good information to go by and getting the right results for people.
It's interesting. I'd never really thought about it from the perspective of like when someone's waiting and it feels like an action's happening. Obviously an action is actually happening. Like it's in my coffee shop, where you try to balance the time the person waits to be served against the time that they're waiting for their drink. And if either one is too long, then that's not good. So it's actually, you go, right, can you acknowledge them, can you bring them forward? So I suppose part of that process to keep those people that are probably frustrated immediately waiting, and then take the guesswork away. So like, rather than, let's just send someone for 15 minutes 3 times a day, and then they, after 3 or 4 weeks realise that's just a waste of money, because actually it'd be better to send someone for half an hour once a day. So it in theory enables much more efficient application of the care that's needed.
Absolutely, and we see that as well. Another point that you were making there is that during that wait time, there's other things that we can be doing. So we have notifications and alerts that can be set up. So if there's a risk during that time period, we can use the system to kind of mitigate that risk a little bit. So we can set up alerts around wandering. If somebody's left the property at night, if that's one of the concerns, then we can set up alerts around that. And we can bring family groups into that circle as well. If they are worried and if they are starting to get frustrated, actually they can be using the system during that time period to view what's happening for mum or dad at home. Let's say it's that situation. And they can be stepping in when they need to as well.
So you were here today doing a talk on one of the panels and talking about data. What were you talking about? What are the highlights that people should be understanding about data and how we use it and what it is?
Yeah, I think we're in quite an exciting time around data. There's a lot of it about, and we're at a time period, I was saying in the talk, that I think when tech in social care is quite young still, we know that. When tech or innovation is in its infancy, you find that solutions pop up independent of one another. They're kind of like, we're fixing a problem and that's where we sit and we'll go in to deliver that, like digital care records or sensor technology for monitoring, that kind of thing. And we're probably in an interesting phase now where we're talking about how these things, we're talking about interoperability for years, but actually I think we're getting to the point now where we're genuinely looking at how these things can play together and what that looks like for people. So we were talking about that. We were talking about how AI tools can probably help to analyse some of the different sources of information. So for example, our systems will generate quite a lot of passive events. So, what's happening, you can kind of map it out in terms of somebody's day, maybe like what their sleep looks like. Was it restful or was it restless? And was there noises in the neighbourhood? There's kind of lots of different information we can pick up from sensors that wouldn't be gleaned from other technologies or digital tools like care records. So if we're able to start pairing those together, then we can form quite a good basis for analysis to understand the root cause of things. And I think we do all of these things now manually, and I think that's it. It's the next stage of development, isn't it? About how we can get data from the systems and the situations that they currently sit in, performing a role for someone, but actually there's multiple people that could probably feed into that. So how can we then link to clinicians, or how can we then start mapping that out in a way that the person wants as well, because there's a consent risk.
I think that's the thing, is that you've got, as well as the consent on the side of the person, it's how, the doctor or the carer or their family can understand the information as well, because each of those people is going to require a slightly different version of that information. Like the stuff that the doctor will want will look different to what the family want to understand about, and how do we use AI, data, connecting things together to get that without creating some weird, AI, you get a report about your granddad, that that makes no sense.
And too much information. Like, we shouldn't be sharing information around that people don't need to know. That's the thing, isn't it? So I think it absolutely is about tech suppliers and tech users being in communication with one another. Like, we can't be going off developing things that we think people might want or need in the future. It really needs to be closely linked to the real world problems and the reality of what's happening now, because it's really specific functionality in lots of cases. And like you say, it might be only one or two pieces of information that somebody needs. We need to make sure that it's not overkill as well. I think working with we've got an internal development team, and they're amazing. Their personality type is that it could do this, it could do that, it could do and that's brilliant. That's what we need. We need that innovation, but we need to fine-tune that and get that specifically down to the features and function that we need.
I mean, things like being able to use AI to answer a question about somebody rather than having to go into the data. So, for example, you're the social worker that's looking after Dave, and you want to know what time Dave goes to bed at night, and you can ask the AI, and it references the data that Just Checking's provided and says, typically, Dave goes to bed at 10 o'clock. However, every other Thursday, there's the racing on, and he stays up and watches the race, or whatever it is, that it can articulate in a way that rather than having to go and dig into the information, look at it all, and try and articulate that yourself, that we can use that brain power of the AI to answer the questions that we need easily.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You're there in that particular scenario. You've used different source points, haven't you? So there's different pieces of information that have come from different places, and we need to match them together in order to spit out a version of that information that's useful to the person at the end of it.
Shall we talk a little bit about the other sort of subset products, Just Checking, and how that works? And it's a similar technology, but it's applied in a slightly different way. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
So I joined the organisation after 20 odd years supporting adults in more complex environments, and the exciting work that we've been doing over the last 5 to 6 years has been around building this bespoke version of the sensor package that we deliver with Just Checking. So that system has been co-produced in supported living settings, generally for adults with learning disability, autism and mental health conditions, and it's about using the sophistication of the bespoke nature of that system to really dig down into the detail of the activity that we're trying to see, and there's the purpose behind it is to be able to remote monitor certain events and provide people that time and space. And we, in the talk today, we focused in on one person specifically who's been a very long time, 20 years in hospital setting, that is now able, through the right environment and through the technology, to be able to live independently, freedom of movement in his own home, and the kind of complexity of that situation and how it works. And really, it's great. This is the part of all of it. I love all my job, but this is the bit that really excites me, because this is where we're starting to use technology to change lives. And our feedback has been from individuals using it, from clinical directors, is that one person said it's life-saving. Several people have said that are being supported have said it makes me feel safe. I feel like an adult now. And
so this is typically used in like adult social care settings for like not elderly adults.
No, so it would be working age adults. Generally with generally who have probably been supported 24/7 that, most of their adult lives, if not all of their adult lives. And it's about using the sensor tech to alert staff to events when they need their support. So what that does is it creates opportunities for staff to leave their accommodation. So, and it might be 10 minutes, it might be 20 minutes in a day, just so they could decompress. It might be linked to distress behaviours and the struggles that they have with having staff in their environments at all times, or when they're becoming anxious, actually they need more space and they need people to clear out. Or it might be a genuinely planned situation where we're trying to step up a skill set. So it might be, right, well, if I'm in the property, you're going to lean back on me to make your drink. But actually, if I'm not there, let's see how that happens. So we're using it in lots of different ways.
And typically applied in a kind of, obviously there's a multitude of use cases, but in a kind of sheltered housing complex is a good use case for it. So where you've maybe got 40 independent living flats together in one place, something like that?
Yeah, it tends to be mainly because of the level of complexity that we generally support. It tends to be more 5 to 6 bungalows, up to 20 maybe in one location. It's just a nice kind of size really in terms of that team and that space, and to ensure that it's very person-centred still. Those setups work really well. And then we'll go in, we'll work with the teams, understand the requirements of the person and how they want to be supported at home, and we'll build a tech package around that. So it might need to be flush fitted because of tolerance of things sticking out in the environment and picking behaviours or others. It might need to talk to other devices, so we'll bring those devices in as well and include that as part of it. And generally what happens is that we set the alerting system and the monitoring system up around individual behaviours and risks that we need to identify and respond to.
So that might be leaving the property or spending too long in a certain room, or not spending enough time in a certain room, to understand that without having to visually monitor people or go knock on the door and let yourself in or something like that, because that's intruding on their privacy.
Yeah, that's right, And it just gives people that space in their own home. People use it really around, it can fluctuate in the day even. So it could be that within a 24/7 period that they've only really need to step out for 10 minutes and that's okay, if that's how it works for that person. But we're working towards greater independence. We're working towards that feeling of autonomy, like I own my home, it's my front door, like I decide when staff come in. It's all of those things. So that's what we're working towards.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming to the studio today. I hope you had a nice, caring conversation.
I did, thank you, York.
All right, we'll be back shortly with another interview.